This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Draft zone.
Who else could it be? But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the 2015 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where we break down every single draft in the National Football League. All 32 teams take a look at what they were able to accomplish. Number of different things we take into consideration. The pick itself, where the pick was made, how it was acquired, how it's going to benefit the team moving forward. So a number of different things taken into consideration. And then we get a grade for each and every single pick, get an aggregate score for each team, and we move on to the next team. We use our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players will pan out. So with all of those particulars out of the way, let's talk about the next team. You pick format. You, the viewers, pick the next team up. Be the first to leave a comment in the comment section with two simple phrases. Again, I don't care how you word it. The phrase next must be in the comment along with the team you want to see next. So I can't stress that enough. On this last video, a guy was actually the first person on the comment section. He dropped the Dolphins, no next. So he did all that work. He was first. He did everything right and forgot one of the biggest components that you need to be first. So again, I can't stress it enough. You know the rules to the game, so play it and play it the right way. So with that being said, no Dolphins, Giants up next on the 2015 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. The G-Men. Very short and compact draft for the Giants. So let's jump into what they were able to accomplish with their 2015 haul and see if they can't make their football team better. You start with their first round selection, 9th pick overall, offensive tackle out of the University of Miami, Ereck Flowers. And we start with his pros, and this guy is humongous. A mammoth, man, at 6'6", 329 pounds. We know the Giants are trying to get bigger along the offensive line. And I think, and look, anytime, because I was one of those people that prior to the draft getting underway, I felt like the Giants needed beef. I said, I really don't care which side of the ball you decide to spend your first pick on. It just needs to be beef. Whether it's defensive line help, offensive line help, you were putrid against the run a season ago. You want to protect Eli Manning. You want to open up more holes in the run game. So I could care less which one it is. Which one is highest on your board, you take them and you move on. And so Ereck Flowers, offensive tackle out of Miami, was that guy at number 9 for them. Maybe Brandon Sheriff would have been their guy if he was there, but he wasn't. And so Ereck Flowers becomes their pick at number 9. And like I said, huge man, 6'6", 329. I think he's the type of player that the Giants are looking for. They're looking to get bigger along their offensive line. Anytime you're right tackle, and remember, you drafted Justin Pugh a couple of years ago out of Syracuse to be a right tackle, and he went to management and he said, look, I wouldn't be mad if you drafted an offensive lineman. Preferably, I'd like you to so I can kick inside. If it were up to me, I'd like to go inside, play guard, you get yourself a tackle, and we can kind of make this thing work the right way. But if you don't take a tackle, and I'm still the guy, I'm ready for the challenge. But that basically tells you where his head is. If a guy tells you, I want to get kicked inside the guard, then you need to go out and find a new tackle. That's essentially what he's telling you. You need to find a new tackle. I'm not the man for the job. So with the Giants, we already knew that Justin Pugh could be a guy that would be a prime candidate to turn into a guard. We knew this when he was drafted. Arms were a little short. Teams weren't really impressed with him in terms of being a tackle at the next level. Thought he would be a better guard, and that's what the Giants probably are starting to think themselves as well. And so the way I look at it, I don't know what the plans are for Ereck Flowers and what the Giants have in mind for this guy. Will they try to make him into a left tackle down the road, which is what I think they're going to try to do when you draft a guy in the top 10. Usually you're looking to make him not only a tackle in this league, but a left tackle preferably. So we'll see if that's what the Giants decide to do or not with Eric Flowers, but he's a massive mammoth man at, like I said, at 6'6", 329. Nasty disposition. This is what I was looking for when I watched the tape on Brandon Sheriff. Everyone was telling me about the nasty disposition, the nasty disposition. This guy's physical, he's mean in the run game. I was looking for that from Brandon Sheriff. I didn't see it. I did see it, however, with Eric Flowers, so I was refreshed to see that again. You don't have to be nasty to be an offensive lineman and be a good one. You don't have to be nasty at all, but I love to see the nasty streak. You know, at the end of a play, you push a guy for no reason, just because he's there, okay? And I'm not saying you run 15 yards after the play is over and chuck a guy into the pile. That's how you get a penalty. I'm talking about playing within the rules of the game, within the framework of the game. Play is over. It's sort of over, not quite over. You're blocking the guy, and at the end, when they blow the whistle, you give him a shove at the end of the play. It's nothing wrong with that. They're not gonna throw a flag for that, okay? And your player gets tackled, and there's a guy laying on him. Get your ass off my running back, and he's that type of guy. Get off of my running back, man. What's wrong with you? Don't lay on my guy. You 313 pounds. Get your ass off my running back. That's the type of player Eric Flowers is, and I like that nasty disposition. He's strong inside, and what I mean by that is when players try to take an inside rush on him, it's not going down. I can assure you that. You may beat this guy to the outside with some speed, but you will not beat him inside at all. Whether you try speed, whether you try power, he's not going for it to the inside. I watched time and time again guys try to go inside on him, and Eric Flowers dropped the hammer on him every single time. It's not going down inside. Like I said, you want to try him outside, be my guest. You may have some success there. Don't try it inside. He's not having it. Length makes up for speed. Speed! The length that he has. I told you he's a 6'6", big mammoth man. He's got vine for arms. His legs are extremely long as well. When you're 6'6", everything's long, okay? And so, what happens with him though sometimes is he can become what Mike Mayock has affectionately termed as a heavy-legged waist bender. And what that essentially means is you got a guy that's a big plotter, a big physical guy, doesn't move all that well, and what happens is his feet get very heavy and he starts to bend over at the waist. If you're an offensive lineman, you want to squat down, you want to get into a stance, and you want to be mobile and move. You don't want to start reaching and bending at the waist, because when you do that, you overextend, you lunge, you're off balance, you're off base, and that's how you get beat, and that's how guys get a direct line to the quarterback. So he can do that sometimes. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but what happens is out of his stance, he's not the fastest guy out of his stance. He's not the fastest guy out of the blocks. And so if you've got electric speed off the snap, you can beat him. But what he does very well is he uses his length, his arms, to help him recover when he's beaten. And so even if you beat him around the corner, even if you're about to bend it at an angle like Beckham and try to go and get to the quarterback, he'll use his arms, go gadget arms, stretch them out, and push you right around the quarterback. Quarterback's allowed to step up in the pocket, deliver the football. So his length makes up for speed that may be able to beat him off the line of scrimmage. And I think what the Giants were most intrigued by here was just the upside. That's the last pro. His upside is tremendous. This is a big man. And I think he's still very raw. And I'll talk about that in a second. And I think there's a lot that the Giants are going to have to fix with this kid, but that's what it's all about. At the next level, it's all about coaching. Guys come into the league very talented with a lot of potential. It's up to the coaching staff to get the most out of these players and turn them into the Pro Bowl, all-pro type player that they could be if you get all of the potential and squeeze all of that potential out of these players. He's one of those guys. He's got a lot to learn at the next level, but if you teach him up and coach him up properly, this guy could be an all-pro right or left tackle at the next level. We go to his cons, and the first thing that jumps off the screen to me is his rawness. He's a very raw football player, and with that rawness that you're going to have early on, he's going to make a lot of mistakes, and you're just going to have to deal with it. If you're a Giants fan, he's going to get beat. There are going to be some holding penalties. There are going to be some things that are going to frustrate you at first. You're going to have to deal with it because he's a raw football player. I think there are some things that he's going to have to work on, and he's going to have to work through some of the rough patches early on in his career. If he's going to be put in front of some of these elite, talented athletes, that can have some burst off the line of scrimmage and even bull rush and use speed to power, he's going to struggle a little bit. And you're going to find that a couple of times. You're going to have some rough games with this kid, but if you stick with him, if he continues to learn, I think you might have a finished product that you can be proud of in New York. Can't be bull rush. And I want to put these last two cons together because to me, they go hand in hand. I want to see better leverage out of him. And because I don't see the leverage enough, and because he doesn't have proper leverage often enough, he can be bull rush. So those are the two last cons. Let me explain this. There are times where guys get into his chest, and as a 6'6" guy with vines for arms, like I just mentioned, I would expect him to be the one to initiate contact. I would expect him to be the one to try to get his hands on the defender first and not allow it to be the other way around. And I've already told you, he's not the fastest out of the blocks. So sometimes he'll look to try to get out of his stance. And in doing so, because he's not the fastest, he doesn't get a chance to set. And by the time he tries to anchor down and make sure that he's not getting bull rushed and dump trucked into the quarterback's lap, it's too late. I'll give you an example against Nebraska. I don't feel like a guy like Randy Gregory, who's 235 pounds, should be manhandling a 6'6", 330-pound offensive lineman. I just don't. If you're the type of guy that you're going to protect your quarterback, you're going to be an all-pro at the next level, I want you to anchor down and stonewall Randy Gregory. If Randy Gregory wants to run a lap around you, fine. If he wants to beat you with pure athleticism and speed, hey, have at it. But you can't let Randy Gregory get his hands up under your pads and jack your back up into the quarterback. And Randy Gregory jacked him up, put him on skates, got him doing the skates dance, and put him in the lap of the quarterback, and that can't happen. You can't let a guy that's 100 pounds less than you jack you up, get leverage, and put you in the lap of the quarterback. And so if you're the Giants, that's something you're going to have to work on with Ereck Flowers, is having him get out of his stance quicker and anchor down a lot faster and maul some of these smaller guys. There's another game against Florida State. Their corner, Ronald Darby, he's got to be 5'10", 5'11", 190, 95 pounds, 200 max. And he's standing up Ereck Flowers at the point of attack out in space, and I'm saying to myself, you should be mauling this guy. You should be picking this little young corner up, tossing him around the field, and using him as a rag doll. He should be ducking for cover when you come his way. Instead, he put two hands on him, got up under his pads, and kind of stood his ground, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You should just fall on this guy and he should be on the ground, pancake. Put a little bit of extra syrup on top of this guy and pancake him. Instead, he's standing him up at the point of attack. He should be creating much more space for his running back when you got a 200-pound, 195-pound corner in front of you. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about leverage. I need to see more of it from him. But when it's all said and done, Giants get themselves a really good football player. The upside is what I think the Giants are banking on. And I wasn't overly impressed with Ereck Flowers. And I know what the Giants are banking on here. And I think that, again, it's all about coaching. And if he's coached up correctly, I think they're going to have themselves a really good football player. But until I see it, I'm not totally wholeheartedly sold, because when you draft a guy in the top 10, I'm expecting him to come in and have immediate impact on the football team. And I don't know how big of an impact Ereck Flowers will have day one. And so for me, it's a triple in the first round for the Giants with their offensive tackle out of Miami, Ereck Flowers. Again, this guy in 2 or 3 years could be a stud for them, could be an anchor or rock for them, probably at left tackle. I think Will Beatty is safe for right now, and Will Beatty is a guy that you probably want to upgrade, but I don't think you're ready to upgrade him now with a guy like Ereck Flowers. I don't think he's ready for that type of challenge. He needs to be on the right side. He needs to get some seasoning. He needs to get better with his technique. And then you move him over to left tackle when you're comfortable with him, you're picking up all of the nuances of the National Football League, and then you see what you have in Ereck Flowers on the left side when he is ready for that challenge. You move on to the second round. 33rd selection overall, safety out of Alabama, Landon Collins. To me, Giants had to trade up, first of all, with the Tennessee Titans to get this selection. Giants knew, and coming into the draft, I felt like the Giants had two huge pressing needs. I felt like they needed to really shore up that defensive line somehow, whether it's defensive end, defensive tackle, and I felt like they needed safety help. To me, that was the most depleted position on their roster. They had to come away with a safety that they could feel good about some point in this draft. I really didn't care when. They just needed to do it, and they saw an opportunity. Landon Collins slipped to the second round, and I had actually predicted that in one of my videos that I thought he wasn't going to be selected. I think, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more when I break Landon Collins down, but I felt like there was a chance for him to slip into the second round. And I think it was unfair that he did, but hey, that's the nature of the business. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the Giants move up with the Titans to number 33, select Landon Collins, and they get a damn good football player, and they get their man, more importantly, in the second round. Let's talk about Landon Collins and his pros and cons and why this guy could be a game changer for the Giants at the next level. He's a physical hammer, okay? And I think those type of terms, when you hear guys are physical and they're hammers and they're in the box safeties, what that does is it puts you in a box. Literally, figuratively, and literally. When you hear in the box safety, teams like to put you in a box. Oh, he can't cover, he can't run, he's not a guy you trust 25 yards away from the line of scrimmage, yada, yada, yada. That was, to me, what made this guy a second round pick, and I think it was unfair to Landon Collins, because if you watch the tape, you put the tape on, I think he's a lot more talented away from the line of scrimmage than people give him credit for. I think he's got more range than people give him credit for, and I think that was something that I thought saw him fall to the second round, was the fact that teams became enamored with guys that could run like a Demarius Randall, who is running a sub 4.5 40, and they started to kind of go away from the guys that they felt like were in the box safeties, and I thought he got a really bad rap and a false label slapped on him because of his physical nature. This guy is a hammer, and he brings it. A hard hat, lunch pail, every time he suits up, he's coming to bring the hammer on someone. And speaking of which, he closes quickly in on ball carriers. He takes a beeline, usually, and let's go ahead and throw this next pro in there while we're at it. Excellent pursuit angles. You don't see him take bad angles very often. Every now and again, he'll fall asleep on his angle, and luckily enough for him, a teammate will slow a guy down. He'll be able to get into the play, make a play on the ball carrier. But for the most part, he takes direct angles to the ball carrier. They're usually the right pursuit angles. And when he has a bead on a ball carrier, it's a beeline, it's quick, he closes the space, and he gets them on the ground. Very good tackler out in space. I love the fact that when he comes, guys usually hit the turf, and there's not a lot of extra yards to be gained after contact. Tremendous blitzer, and he has an in-the-box presence. Now, I've talked about that already and how physical he is in nature. And so that, by just having that label, you're a guy that everyone wants to put in the box. He blitzes very well. There's a play against Florida. Times up the snap count beautifully. It's a running play. They hand it to Matt Jones. Who? Matt Jones! And he comes scot-free off the corner. Tackle doesn't see him, doesn't account for him, comes right into the backfield, smashes Matt Jones for a 3-yard loss in the backfield. He can time it up. There's another time where he blitzes, gets in, pressure on the quarterback. Quarterback has to get rid of the football quickly. So he can blitz around the line of scrimmage. He's very, very comfortable playing around the line of scrimmage. You also get special teams value with him. Watching him, he's a guy that was playing on all the special teams, so you get a core special teamer as well. Don't know if the Giants would use him in that capacity in his rookie season. I'm pretty sure they will. When you got that kind of value, you want to use it and you want to get the most out of your selection. I expect him to be just about on every single special teams possible, and so that's more value for Landon Collins on the football team. And this is why I thought he was very underrated and undervalued at. He has range when he's in zone coverage. I like this range. If you put that Florida tape on, you tell me that this guy can't play away from the line of scrimmage. Watch that game and you'll come away feeling a lot differently about Landon Collins than if you just listen to other people talk about him in his game. He was everywhere in that game. There's one play where he hits the receiver. If he's not there on time and ready for some action, time for some action, time for some action. If he's not there and ready for some action, that's about a 35-yard pass down the sidelines. Instead, he hits the receiver as he tries to catch the football, doesn't allow him to get a foot inbounds, incomplete pass. There's another play where he ranges over the middle of the field and is able to one-hand, and that's the highlight reel you see from him when you see him in coverage, where he goes up with one hand, snags the football down, and makes a nice little nifty return Then there's another play in the game, quarterback rolls out, he's looking for a player. And this is another game, I want to say this is against Arkansas, where the quarterback is rolling out across the field, he's looking for a receiver, and Landon Collins leaps up and bats the football. Very athletic football play. He ranges well for me. He moves around very well. I think that's something that he doesn't get enough credit for. He's a playmaker. And this is something I didn't know. Of all the things watching Landon Collins that I really wasn't sure about, and because a lot of times when we think about playmakers, we think about the free safety, the guy that can go get the football. I think that's why Clinton Dix was the guy that was drafted in the first round last year, because he was looked at as a playmaker. And so you think, and Landon Collins in the box safety, not a playmaker. He's a guy that's a physical hammer in the box. That's not true. This is a guy that made some big plays. I just talked about that interception against Florida. That was a very close, tight-knit game when he made that interception. I talked about the Arkansas game. That was a game Alabama won 14-13, and he had the game-winning interception to seal it for Alabama. Quarterback rolls out, throws across his body all the way to the other side of the field. If Landon Collins does not locate this football, and this football is caught, and that receiver is able to break away from Landon Collins, it is a touchdown. Landon Collins locates the football. It's a deflated pass, so he's able to undercut it, pick it off, and seal up the victory. There's another play in another game where the ball is tipped late in the ball game. Landon Collins' presence of mind to see the ball tipped, locate and adjust, and pick it off. He's a playmaker. He's always around the football, and always, I tell you this all the time, when you're around the football, good things tend to happen. And so those are things that I love about Landon Collins. What's the one thing I don't like? What's the one con I have? Because I don't have many. There's a lot of good tape here, folks. The one thing I don't like, he's limited in man-to-man coverage. There was one play, luckily enough for him, Jeff Driscoll stinks. And so there was a tight end wide open over the middle field. He had ran right by Landon Collins in man-to-man coverage, wide open on the seam route up the middle of the field. And Jeff Driscoll just flat out didn't see him. And so he got lucky, he got away with one. And there's other times where you see him kind of struggle in man-to-man coverage. It's not something Alabama asks him to do very often, and for good reason. But again, like I said, that's not his forte, that's not his strength. You want to put him in zone coverage, he's fine in that aspect. You want to bring him up, he's even better in that realm when you bring him up close to the line of scrimmage. But if you're looking for him to be a guy that drops over the slot and plays man-to-man coverage and runs with some of these athletic tight ends man-to-man, you're not going to like your results there. So if you put him in positions to succeed, you got yourself a hell of a football player. In the second round, this is great value. He should have been selected in the first round. He does a lot more than what people give him credit for. To me, you can put it on the board. Yes! It's a home run for the New York Giants in the second round. 33rd overall selection. Landon Collins, safety out of Alabama, going to help their secondary tremendously after losing a guy like Antrell Roll, among others. Go to the third round. Not going to break this guy down. You got the 74th pick overall, defensive end out of UCLA, Owambe Odigizua, double O as I like to call him. This is a guy that I was madly in love with throughout the process. If you haven't seen what I have to say about him, check out the NFL Draft 101 Prospects video as I broke him down among others, and I talked about how I felt about him. I told you, I thought this guy was a first round talent. I thought that he was going to probably be a guy that was taken at the end of the first round, maybe sometime early in the second round. I didn't think he would be around late stages of the second round, let alone the third round where you got him. I think the injury issues and some of the medical concerns dropped him down on some teams' boards. I don't care. This guy is dynamic. I love his game. So for me, third round for a guy that I thought had first round talent, and I think it's only going to get better. You know what you can do. Go ahead, put it on the board. It's another home run, back-to-back jacks for the New York Football Giants. When the Giants are at their best, listen to me clearly, they usually go to the Super Bowl every 4 years. 2007, 2011, now it's 2015. This could be the year. And if they are in the hunt to go to the Super Bowl, it's going to be because guys like double O, Owambe Odigizua comes in and helps them get pressure on the quarterback. When the Giants are at their best, if you don't listen to anything else I tell you, hear me now, hear me loud. When the Giants are at their best, they get consistent pressure on the quarterback. If they get this guy to come in and they are able to get JPP back to the form that made him a terror 2.5 years ago, look out for the New York Football Giants in the NFC East. You go on to the 5th round, no 4th round selection for the Giants with that trade with the Titans. They had to give it up. So you go to the 5th round, 144th overall selection, defensive back out of Texas, Michael Thompson. One of the most unique ways you'll see the name Michael spelled. It's different. You see people trying to play with names. This one is the first time I've ever seen this one, but it's still Michael all the same. And so let's break him down and talk about why he was selected in the 5th round. His pros. First thing that you see, his size. I talked about this league and how defensive backs are looking at a transformation of sorts. Teams are looking for the bigger, longer, more athletic corners and safeties. This is a cornerback, and I'll talk about his versatility here in a second because I think that's the thing that the Giants saw that had them fascinated, because again, I talked about the secondary being a position of weakness for the Giants. And so when you get a guy that can play just about every position in the secondary, you'll jump at the chance to get him onto your football team. And so I think that's why the Giants were enamored with him. But at 6'2", 191, I'm in love with the 6'2", the height, the length. Not in love with the 191 pounds, especially if you're telling me you want to put him at safety at times. But again, in this league, because of the way offenses are constructed now with 3 and 4, and even sometimes 5 receiver sets, safeties are looked upon as extra corners, essentially. And so that's essentially what he'll be in certain sets, either in dime packages, or if the Giants, who last year employed a lot of 3 safety sets, he might be on the field in some of those sets as well. So we'll see how the Giants decide to employ him if in fact he makes the team and is on the field in passing situations. Athletic. I told you he's 6'2", so that's a big guy, and then you add in the fact that he's a 4'7", 40 guy. It means he can pick him up, put him down, and so that's something that also helps him in the process, and made the Giants say, hey man, we can take a flyer out on this kid and maybe we can coach him up and get him to be a supreme athlete for us. His durability, played in every single collegiate game that he was eligible to participate in. Didn't start in all of them, but started in most of them, but he played in every single game, never redshirted, started from day one, and was a guy that the Texas Longhorns every Saturday could look to help them try to get it done on game day. So he's a guy that doesn't get injured very often and is there to suit up and play football for you week in, week out. Versatility, and to me this is the big thing for him. This is the end-all be-all of why the Giants selected him. His versatility. At Texas, he not only played outside as a boundary corner, he also played in the slot, and he played at safety some. The most of the tape you watch, he was at cornerback, and again, when you're 6'2" and you're only 191 pounds, you can understand why he was at corner more so than at safety, and a lot of times he was out on the boundary. So he's a guy that the Giants might look at as a corner first and foremost, move him around a little bit if need be, but he's got the movement skills to move around and play the slot if necessary. But a lot of times you don't see 6'2" corners in the slot. This is probably a guy the Giants are looking to play out wide with these bigger receivers. His cons. He's not overly physical. I told you he's 191 pounds. It's hard to be very physical. You can be feisty at 191 pounds. It's rare that you find a physical 190-pound cornerback, and he doesn't fit that bill. He's not a physical guy. He's more of a finesse corner that is looking, hey, if I have to, I'll stick my nose in there, but if you guys got it, I'll let you handle it, and I'll just make sure he doesn't break free. So he's one of those type of guys, not an overly physical. That's why I can't see him making a transition to safety, because even when he's the last line of defense, I saw him get dragged about 5 or 6 yards. He's holding on to a guy, trying to get him down, waiting for help to come. As the safety, I need you to get this guy on the ground. I need you to get him on the ground now, not let him drag you along for 5 yards and wait till the cavalry arrives. So he's not really, to me, a safety type. He's more of a cornerback and a guy that you can move around at the slot and maybe out wide in those type of situations. But he's not instinctual enough for me either. That's another con. He's not a guy that makes a lot of plays, which takes us to our last con, and we can go ahead and lump these together. He's not a playmaker. Only 2 career interceptions in 4 years of college football. So he's not a guy that's instinctual. He's not going to have a nose or a knack for being around the football. A lot of plays that I watched, he allowed guys to get in front of him and use their body to shield him away from the football. He's not jumping routes. He's not being aggressive. And maybe that's something that the Giants liked. He didn't get beat a lot. He didn't get beat over the top. He was a little bit more cautious as a defender. And again, high risk, high reward. If you're willing to take risks, you're going to make some plays. You're also going to get beat. Well, he wasn't willing to really take a lot of risk. He was a guy that, hey, you can have this 5-yard completion in front of me, and you might drag me for another 3 yards, but you won't get me on a double move and hit me for a 58-yard touchdown. So the Giants saw some things they like. I thought they overdrafted him, but again, you know my mantra, you know my motto, get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. Obviously, the Giants felt like they needed to draft him in the 5th round, and so for me, I'm really not in love with this pick. I didn't see a lot on tape here that gets me excited about Michael Thompson. He just looks like another guy, one that easily could not make your roster, but with that size, with that versatility, in a 5th round selection, I think he's all but insured to make this roster if he stays healthy throughout camp and just shows them a flash of what they saw on tape. I think they'll be excited about him and he won't be going anywhere, but I wasn't impressed at all. In fact, so much so that I saw him as a single up the middle, and that's it. He's just a one-bagger. I didn't see anything here that got me excited at all. The size excites me. The weight doesn't. He's not physical. He doesn't make plays on the football. He's not instinctual. He's not physical. I mean, what is there? What is there here with this guy that makes him exceptional, that makes him stand out from the rest of the crowd? I didn't see it. He's a single. Michael Thompson, defensive back out of Texas. We move on to the 6th round. Pick 186 overall, wide receiver, Jeremy Davis out of Connecticut. Now, this is a guy that I do like. And here are his pros. He's a big 6'2", 216-pound physical wide receiver. And I like his frame. I like the way he's constructed and built. And I'll talk about who he reminds me of here in a second, but let's go down the rest of his pros. He's got a really good set of hands. Are they ODB hands? Are they shame on you when you step to the old dirty Beckham? Hell no, they're not that good, okay? But they're a solid set of hands that I feel like you can count on good enough to get the job done when you need it to be done. And so I think he has a really good set of hands. I'll talk about his hands a little bit later on though, and why they're not a great set of hands. They're a good set, but not a great set, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Uses his body to shield off defenders. I already told you I like his frame. I like the way he's built. He's a solidly built, I love his frame type of guy. And so he has a body that's chiseled like a tight end, but again, at 216 pounds, he plays the wide receiver position. So I like his body, and I like the fact that he understands how to use his body to keep defenders away from the football. If you throw the football correctly, he's going to box them out and make sure they don't have a chance to catch the football or make a play on the football. He will high point the football. There's a game that I watched where he goes up 2 defenders. I want to say it was against Memphis. 2 defenders in his vicinity. He goes up, high points the football, snatches it away from them, and gets his feet down inbounds for a touchdown. Beautiful play. And then there's another play in another game, or it might have been the same game. They throw him a bang 8 backside post, and he goes up, climbs the ladder, snatches it out of the air. It's a thing of beauty. And you see the ability to climb the ladder and catch the football away from his frame. So I love that about Jeremy Davis. He did that on a number of occasions, which shows that it wasn't a fluke, it's not luck, and I can pluck it out of the air. You throw it up, I can go and get it. Blocks well. And when you have a big framed receiver like this, I want to see them be physical in the run game. I don't want to see you pussyfooting around, allowing guys to get around you, giving me half-hearted efforts. Go out, put your hands on guys and move them, or at least get in the way, shield them away from the running back, and allow guys to get yards after the catch. So when he's out there blocking for a wide receiver screen, he's doing his job. He's making sure that the receiver not only gets a chance to catch it and identify what lane he wants to use, but give him a chance to get up the field and get some positive yardage. Same thing in the run game. Running back wants to come his way, he'll turn the defender in one way or the other to give the running back a clear indication of where he needs to go off of the block. So I think he blocks very well for a guy his size, and that's what I like to see out of bigger receivers. Receivers just in general, I want to see you block, but bigger ones especially, you've got an advantage, use it, put your hands on the defenders and get them out of the way. You know who he reminds me of? And I said I was going to tell you who he reminds me of. And I think the Giants missed this all last season. Now, you can say what you want about Hakeem Nicks and him always being injured and never practicing. And he was inconsistent, didn't have any touchdown catches a couple years ago, his last year in New York. But you missed that big body physical receiver last year. Odell Beckham Jr. burst onto the scene and did some big things for you. Victor Cruz! You didn't have Victor Cruz. He went down with the injury and he's more of a slot guy, a smaller option. Ruben Randle is very inconsistent. When he's on, he's good. When he's not, he's not. And so you missed that big physical presence. That's why you kept forcing the football to Larry Donnell last season. This is where I think he's going to fill that Hakeem Nicks void. To me, he's a much slower Hakeem Nicks. And I don't want to call, I'm not saying the guy is a 4.6 guy because he's not. As a matter of fact, let's go to his times so I can explain myself a little bit better. The reason why I said he had good hands, not great hands, he double catches the football sometimes. And there's a play where he's going out of bounds. If he catches it cleanly, it hits him in both hands, he's got it. If he catches it cleanly, the first time it's a reception about 17, 18, maybe 22 yards on the play, on a nice out cut. If he catches it cleanly, it's a reception. Instead, he bobbles it, double catches it. By the time he gets the football and corrals it, that second time around, he's out of bounds. It's not a catch. It's incomplete. There's another play. Quarterback throws him the ball on a quick slant. He double catches it. He does get away with it this time. He double catches it and is able to corral it and go down to the ground before contact comes and dislodges the football. But you know, at the next level, you know how it goes. Okay, you double catch footballs, a lot of times guys are going to be on you, they're going to be in your hip pocket, and you don't get a second chance to catch that football. You double catch it, and the next thing you know, ball is on the ground, incomplete, because the guy slapped down on your arm and knocked it out of your hands. He doesn't play to his time speed. This is why I say he's a slower Hakeem Nicks, because you say, again, say what you want about Hakeem Nicks. Wasn't the fastest guy, but he could beat you if he got ahead of steam. Here's a 4.49 receiver, or at least that's his time speed for Jeremy Davis. He does not play to that speed. You watch him on tape, you don't see 4.49 40 at all at any point while watching him play football. And so that takes us to our last. He'll have trouble separating from NFL caliber corners, I feel like, on a consistent basis. He'll win because of his size, and I think if he's able to use his size like he did in college, he'll be fine and he'll do the dirty work, because right now I don't think the Giants have a threat to go over the middle of the field and be a big physical presence at the receiver position. Again, Larry Donnell did a lot of that for you at the tight end position, but you didn't have a receiver that you felt really good about. I love Odell Beckham Jr. I don't want him over the middle of the field. I don't want him taking big shots. Neither do I want Victor Cruz, even though I want him working the slot. I don't want him climbing the ladder, going up for the football over the middle of the field. Let the big guys do that. And I think Jeremy Davis is someone that's going to be able to come in and do that for you. I don't see him winning a lot of matchups on the outsides, especially with speed. He's going to have to use his body. And so that's another con for me. I don't think he'll be able to separate from NFL caliber corners on a consistent basis. Eli Manning's going to have to either throw him open, or he's going to have to win with body usage or great running ability with his routes. We'll see if he's able to do that as well. But I like this guy. I like what he brings to the table. And I want to see what happens when the level of competition steps up, because in that American Conference, and even before then when he was in the Big East, the competition wasn't that great to me. And so I want to see what happens when he starts playing against these guys. They're going to jam him up. They're going to be physical with him at the line of scrimmage. They're going to be in his hip pocket. How does he adjust? And really, he would have had an even better career. It might have even been a higher draft pick had he had better quarterbacking. In his defense, the quarterbacking was lousy at Connecticut for a number of years when he was there. And he actually made his name 2 years ago when he had over 1,300 yards receiving. So that's when he put himself on the map and really gave himself a chance to be drafted in the 6th round by the Giants. I think he's a solid double off the wall. If he was a little bit more consistent with his speed, and he showed me the ability to be a deep threat, this is a triple. And I don't give out 6th to 7th round triples often. And so I needed to see a little bit more from him to offer that 3-bagger, but I can't give it to him. He's a double, but I really like what he brings to the table, because I think the Giants need a bigger receiver. And you got some big boys. You got Washington, and you got a number of guys that you may like. But I think that this is a kid here that might be able to step in and jump in front of a couple of those guys and may get some looks early in his career. You go to the 7th round in the Giants' final selection, 226th overall, offensive lineman out of Florida State, Bobby Hart. This is a very intriguing pick for a number of reasons. Let's just talk about this. And pros, cons, to me, there's not a lot here. The reason why he's so intriguing, massive man, okay? 6'5", 329, much like your first round pick, Eric Flowers. Here's a guy that is huge, 6'5", 329, but he doesn't look like Eric Flowers. He looks more compact. His body structure isn't as tough and rugged. He doesn't seem like a guy that's very powerful. And so the big thing for him is, as a tackle at Florida State, I thought he held his own. I thought he was solid. He wasn't great. You know, he never wowed you. He didn't do anything that made you feel warm and fuzzy inside. But he was a guy that you could count on week in, week out to make sure that Jameis Winston didn't get his head ripped off. Now, at the next level, everyone sees him and projects him as a guard. So do I. Now, that being said, he offers versatility because of that. He spent his career mostly at tackle at Florida State. And so being kicked inside the guard, which everyone thinks is his more natural position at the NFL level, I think gives him some versatility. Sure, he'll probably be a guard if he makes this roster. If the Giants need an offensive lineman in a pinch to come in the game and do a number of things, he can be a utility guy. So he might be that swing tackle and a guy that can play guard, saves you a roster spot. You can see Bobby Hart being that type of player. Again, if he makes the roster. We'll see what happens. But, you know, to get a guy like this that played at the level that he played at in the conference that he played, big time college football, Florida State was in the mix the last 2 years. To get a guy like this in the 7th round, I think for the Giants, they probably feel really good about what they were able to accomplish by getting a guy like Bobby Hart. Now, he's going to need a little bit of work. And to me, his biggest con, the only con I really have on him, is he's limited athletically, and so when you watch him on tape, speed kills him. Guys that can run, that can get off the snap quickly, give him fits. To me, he didn't have a problem with the guys that were big physical guys like an Eric Armstead, for instance. I didn't think he struggled with guys like that. I didn't think he struggled with guys that didn't pose a threat to him with athleticism and speed. I thought the guys that gave him the most trouble were the guys that could run around him quickly and have him not be able to react fast enough because of his limited athleticism. They didn't ask him to pull at Florida State. They didn't ask him to go out and be a lead blocker on screens and things of that nature. They just asked him to protect Jameis Winston and do enough in the run game. And so, to me, he's a double in the 7th round because of his versatility, what he provides. If he makes this roster, I think the Giants feel good about having a guy that can play multiple positions along the offensive line, saves you a roster spot, and helps you in that type of way. Again, with roster spots being of the utmost importance, if you can get a guy that can play multiple positions and be somewhat of a swing tackle and play some guard for you, you're talking about a guy that could potentially play 4 out of the 5 positions along the offensive line. Do you want him at left tackle? Hell no. Do you want him at right tackle? Probably not. But in a pinch, you never know what could happen. 2 linemen could go down, both of them tackles in the same game, and this guy has to come in. You feel good about having a guy on your roster that played that position at a high level at a big-time program like Florida State. So that's the Giants draft in a nutshell. Thought they did some really good things. Thought they would attack the tight end position. I thought they would attack the defensive line position, and I thought they would attack safety a little bit more than they did. But I think they got enough players for what they did. When you only have a 6-player draft, it's a nice, neat, compacted draft. You got to spread the wealth, and that's what they did. They got a guy in Taylor Cooper that they may like. He's a big 6'4" safety. They got some stuff on this roster, believe it or not. It's all about development. I've been talking about that. I preach that all the time. At the next level, what teams that you see being in the runnings every year are the ones that have coaching staffs. First of all, you got to have scouts that can identify talent. Then you got to have the coaches at the next level that can coach up that talent. The Ravens, the Packers, the teams that you see every year in the runnings that do this draft thing the best, those are the teams that can identify talent and then have their coaching staff coach it up. And so, to me, when I see the type of guys the Giants have on their roster right now, I see a lot of guys with height, weight, speed, and guys that just need to be coached up. And we'll see what the Giants do with all of the talent that they potentially have on their roster. And so you tally up their score. They get a triple in the first round with Eric Flowers. You follow that up with 2 back-to-back home runs with Landon Collins and Odiggy Zua. Then you go to a single in the 5th round with Michael Thompson. Then you follow that up with 2 straight doubles in Jeremy Davis and offensive lineman Bobby Hart out of Florida State. You tally that up, you get 16, you divide it by 6. No bonus points for the Giants. And so it equals out to a 2.7 double for the G-Men as they complete their 2015 NFL Draft wrap-up. And that's going to do it for me here on the program. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it. Oh, here in the lab room, come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. See you in a bit. Let's see who's next. There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at InTheLabRoom, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.